We talk about reparations all day, and I'll probably be dead before that happens. So I bought my own. I bought my own freedom, pretty much. In the 21st century, I bought my own freedom, and it's a lot of work that goes into that. I want my great grandchildren to look at a man that lived in the city of Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, for 30 some odd years, and then there was a paradigm shift.
A movement is underway of people abandoning the emotional, physical, and financial expenses of city living and crafting their own purpose, livelihoods, and joy in the rural reaches. The Urban Exodus podcast shares the wisdom, wit, and stories of those who decided to embark on the road less traveled to pursue their own interpretation of the good life. Small business owners, change makers, artists, farmers, and more, working towards building a better future for themselves and their fellow citizens. This podcast is for country dreamers, rural folk, and urban dwellers alike who want to feel more connected to the natural world and the purpose and choices in their lives. I'm Melissa Hessler. Welcome to the Urban Exodus. I'm excited to invite you to my conversation with Matthew Ross, the community activist, minister, musician, father, and homesteader behind Blackhaven Ranch. Matthew grew up on the south side of Chicago. For many years, he tried to fundraise to buy a large parcel of land to build Blackhaven Ranch, a rural retreat where city people could feel safe to spend time exploring nature. When he couldn't find a way to make his larger vision work, he decided to do it for his own family and create a template that could be replicated or expanded upon in the future. Blackhaven Ranch's mission is to provide alternative solutions to urban oppression by promoting agriculturally centered, holistic, primitive, and self-sufficient living. Our interview was recorded in mid-February, when the catastrophic Texas freeze had people scrambling for drinking water, food, and heat. For Matthew, this disaster was a reminder of why he wants to build Blackhaven Ranch: to not be reliant on corrupt systems and fragile infrastructures to provide your basic human needs. Welcome, Matthew Ross. It's such a pleasure to speak with you today, finally, after a long time talking online. Let's just get started. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and kind of how your upbringing has shaped who you are today.
I had a pretty good upbringing. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Both of my parents all lived in the same house. Got a younger brother, about 15 months apart. Father's a Baptist minister, so he's pretty strict. But we grew up middle class, never really want for anything or wonder what's going to be our next meal or anything. So we had a pretty good upbringing.
So your father was a Baptist minister. What was your involvement in the church as a young age, and how have you carried that through?
Well, pretty much my whole family, we're from the South, so we still have that culture. Grandfather's from Mississippi. My grandmother's from Mississippi on my father's side. We keep those traditional values. My father was real strict. As far as my involvement in the church, it was pretty much every day. Every day we were there. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday Bible study, Thursday choir rehearsal, Friday prayer meeting, all day Sunday. All my family, we had to learn how to play an instrument, several instruments, because we had to assist with accompaniment and all that stuff. But, I think most preachers' kids really can't stand church growing up, but it's something that I guess, as the Bible says, raise a child in the way they should go, and when they're older, they won't depart from it. Even with all of my pushback and everything, I eventually found my calling. I was called to the ministry. It took a long time, longer than most. I actually didn't even get baptized until I was 26. So that's a long, after college and everything. my theology, my understanding of the gospel and who Christ is and or what he came for is pretty much what shapes everything else in my life, how I go about service, advocacy, activism, and all those things.
So you have really committed your life to service and to your community. You've worked as a community organizer and an activist for many years. Blackhaven Ranch, you say, offers the solution to urban oppression. What does urban oppression mean to you?
Ironically, we have a really good example in the last 2 weeks what's going on in Texas, right? We see urban dwellers have been kind of herded into these paddocks. They don't feel that they have any options because they haven't been exposed to them, or they're so far removed from them that they won't even seek any options that actually go out of our way to pay a premium for a convenience fee. And when you do that, the power is not in your hand. It's in the government or the power that be corporate's hands. And they can do whatever they want. If you don't have any alternatives, any options, any knowledge of any other way to go, then you'll be stuck paying that premium for convenience, the high convenience. So urban oppression is pretty much not having any leverage, and you can be exploited and taken advantage of to the highest level. If gas prices go up to $10 a gallon, people are going to pay that.
So let's talk about your solutions that you have implemented in your own life. Can you talk about your family's food growing journey in the city and what you've learned from that experience?
We actually started growing our own food because we wanted to get our hands dirty and get some experience before actually moving to the land that we were going to purchase. My wife was saying that, if we fall, we're going to fall hard here, not there. And so I reached out. I saw this first time. I didn't know what homesteading was and any of this stuff. And I saw Homestead Rescue, and it was a Black family on there. We were binge watching it, and I finally saw someone Black on there, and so we skipped past everything else and watched that, and ended up being who I call my mentor, Chantel Johnson from Off Grid and Color. She is from Chicago. I was actually working in the high school that she went to that week. I reached out to her and I asked her, where do you start? All of this, and she answered me right back. She said, you can start with a window garden, and that's what I did. It's February 2018. I started a window garden, and then we transplanted everything to the backyard. February 14th, 2018, chickens came. Day-old chicks came in the mail. We started that. Made our mistakes, trial and error. Grew tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, some different spices and herbs and stuff. And then I was so gung-ho about it. I was so excited about it that after harvest, in about September, I was already planning for the next year. And I think I started my season January that year. And we ran out of room in the backyard and went out front, and we started the mini farm. We tried everything, and that kind of came upon me. The mini farm going out front was a reaction to, some stuff that the government had done to limit my access to my property that I had just bought. So I couldn't go there. So I said, if they're not going to let me go there, I'll bring it here. And so I brought it out front. And a lot of people didn't like it, but eventually they saw it as it's probably going to be a necessity.
So initially, maybe your neighbors were not super excited to see you gardening, but have you inspired anyone else to tear up their yards and grow food? Is this something that's catching on in your community?
I will say that I've inspired a lot of people to at least start gardening. like a lot of people. I don't think that they've gone as far as tearing up their front yards, but definitely I've been out there to, help them design their backyards, get them started. And, I mean, last year, probably about 30 people I went out, I was helping to do their yards and everything. So, for my age group, for a millennial, someone that's in their early 30s in the city of Chicago, that was probably something that was super lost. Like no one was thinking about that. And then once people, saw that, okay, I put a seed in the ground and some dirt and something comes up, what's to that? Let me see if I can do that. And so we've modestly, I want to say, but we want to say that we've got a lot of people's gardens started. I have a couple people that have bought chickens, actually.
That's awesome. So let's talk about Blackhaven Ranch. Where did the idea come from? I know that it was a much larger idea initially, but this is kind of a scale back.
Well, for years, I had been talking about buying, a couple thousand acres in Illinois. I did not say land is pretty cheap. I didn't know that. We can do this together. So in my neighborhood, Blackhaven Community Investments was the initial thing. I moved back to the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I saw this commercial property for sale. The neighborhood is turning, people are leaving, all of this stuff. And I said, man, we can buy this strip mall, we can buy laundromat, we can buy this bar, all of this stuff. We get together, we can buy our neighborhood. It's relatively, it's pretty expensive for the size, but it's not undoable. $2 million for, 8 stores or something like that. We can do this. And everyone's like, yeah, that's a good idea and all of that stuff. And then you see what you have to run, all the red tape that you have to go through to do anything in the city, especially in the city of Chicago. It's just all kind of red tape. You got to look out for people have friends that's holding on to property and all kinds of stuff. And so that was one of my motivations for leaving. I said, I can't do this. Like, we have to stop fighting. And I guess as that country song says, know when to hold them, fold them, walk away, and know when to run. So I say, maybe this is something that we need to start considering, stop fighting this system and turn our backs on it. I wanted to get some land, on a large scale. No one wanted to get in. And so I said, I know our people, they'll listen, they'll believe it when they see it. So I said, I'll go out and I'll do it myself on a smaller scale, and then they'll see, and then they'll believe. And immediately when they saw that I did it, then everyone was like, hey, I want in. I want in. That's where Blackhaven Ranch, I just took it and I ran and put ranch on it. Everything else is history. That's November 2017.
So what things were you searching for when you were looking for land, and why did you ultimately decide to buy in the Ozarks region?
I looked in southern Illinois. That's the first place I looked. I said, Illinois is so boring. It's boring. It's just flat. It's just flat. And I knew that I wanted to, this is about more than farming and horticulture and raising food for me. It's about land ownership. It's about being able to do what you want to do without having the permits and all the red tape. And so I knew Illinois was flat and boring, and then the laws in Illinois are ridiculous. But I also knew that I wanted to be close enough where I can still impact my community, whether that be by providing food for them or providing outdoor experience or a haven where they can feel safe outdoors. So we looked at Kentucky, Tennessee, and Missouri. We actually, November 2017 was when I got the go ahead from my wife. Long story short, we went to a cabin on the lake, Airbnb, at the last minute for our 5th anniversary. Even though I had been talking about buying land for all these years, she wasn't all the way on board. And after I think we spent 2 days there, and the lady had a real nice setup. She had a cabin on the lake. She had a big house which she was renting out, and then she had a small house that she stayed in. She had her animals and everything, and I think she was like a retired real estate person. On the way back, coming down I-55, my wife said, if you can get it like that, then we can do it. And so right there on I-55, she started looking for property on the app, and we put out a goal to have something by October 2018 and ended up finding something April of 2018. But the Ozarks is beautiful. It's close. Missouri's laws, they don't even have laws. It's like the Wild West almost, but it's beautiful. And in hindsight, I actually went to the Lake of the Ozarks in 2010, and I've forgotten all about it. I used to do massage therapy. I was a clinical massage therapist, and I did a retreat there. And on my break, I went running. I used to run like 20 miles a day. I wrestled in high school and college. And I ran to this top of this hillside, and I looked over it, and I was just in awe. And I decided to walk back. I'd never run again in my life. I realized that all those years I was running, I skipped past all of this beauty. I wasn't paying attention to anything. And I haven't run ever since. And I think that's like 2011. And then fast forward all those years, I'm right back in the Ozarks. So it's kind of a significant place for me. And, I really appreciate that.
So you bought your property sight unseen. Now that you've had time to explore, what are some of your favorite defining features of your land? And was it scary to buy a place sight unseen?
Well, there's a story. So, April 12th, 2018, this place came up. And it said it was 41 acres. And it was around where we were looking in the Ozarks. It was in Eminence, right outside of Eminence, Missouri. Eminence has some historical significance and that I've read up on. And I saw pictures, but these pictures in the video didn't really describe it. So it was 41 acres, and I went in on it, and we went out. I bought it, put my down payment down, and went out there and saw it. And in my head, I bought it, so I'm making the best out of this in my head. And I'm like, yeah, we can. In my head, I'm like, yeah, we can do this. This is where we're gonna be able to do this. And my wife is like, no. No. So basically it's like 41 acres, and then, maybe 6 acres are like really functional. And then everything else is like this gorge that you had to get down. And me, I'm like, hey, it's got character. I'm making the best of it. Luckily, I had an agreement with this owner finance, and then, I had some time to look over, and he had a couple other properties. She really didn't like it, and so we looked into some more stuff over the next couple months, and this property, they came available, had the pond on it, electricity's right there on the frontage. The view is on the knoll is absolutely gorgeous, and it's accessible by a vehicle, and it's have some flat cleared land already, and then the rest of it we have to work on, but it's functional, and I believe it's the best tract of land in that area that's not developed. And so we really take your time, learn your lessons and stuff, and you just be patient, and the stuff that you want, it'll come. So it's not 40 acres, it's 27 acres. And so I'm working on getting the rest of it. Actually, I'm working on it right now.
This episode is brought to you by Hessler Creative, a creative photography duo offering conceptualized brand content and in-person and online workshops. Hire us for elevated photos and videos to help your business rise above the noise and expand your customer reach. Or you can join us for an online or destination photography workshop. Explore new places, learn new techniques, and elevate your creative work. Learn more about our workshops and our commercial photography services by visiting HesslerCreative.com or click the collaborations button on urbanexodus.com. I mean, a lot of people actually have left the city during the pandemic. Our area has just filled up with city people that are just buying up anything that has been on the market, like things that have been on the market for years that are just getting bought up, and construction workers are booked for years in advance. I mean, it sounds like you kind of bought at the right time. Are you noticing that there's been an influx of people to the Ozarks? Is that something that has happened there as well?
To your first point, I absolutely have seen the influx of people to rural areas throughout the United States. Things just kind of work out for me like that. I kind of see those things happening before they happen. And so, I'm most of the time always ahead of stuff, which is kind of triggering sometimes. As far as the Ozarks, I've seen the Ozarks get more attention, but I haven't really seen an influx of population, mainly because I believe, well, close to me, we're next to the Mark Twain National Forest. So we're protected from a lot of, building and commercial stuff that will come, or just development. But I've seen people throughout the Ozarks as a whole come there, and probably a lot of people before I even got there. Most people, I was told, are transplants into the area.
I know you've inspired a lot of people by what you're building, and obviously you are a visionary. You see things before they happen. Just like you said, you saw this happening and you moved before a lot of other people moved. What advice do you have for other people who are inspired by what you're building, but they don't know where to start to work towards greater self-reliance, or even to buy land somewhere?
The first thing is to know what you want. Know what you want, and that doesn't have to be set in stone. Right? Know what you want out of this, and be patient and learn. Be open to learning. The more you learn, the more you change your feelings about the things that you want. And so if someone was wanting to start or begin this journey, I would say know what you want, and then don't try to be like anyone else. And I'm sure most homesteaders, it's just rabbit hole after rabbit hole on YouTube, and especially on Instagram. It's comforting because in another time, you probably be isolated with these feelings and these goals and, all of this stuff. You'll be the only one. But with social media and technology, it's like your whole family of visionaries are right there with you every day. And you're able to share and bounce ideas off of each other and learn. But at the same time, it looks glamorous with all the editing and stuff. And it just looks like, oh, this wonderful life. and these low light pictures on Instagram and the eggs and all that stuff. But you have to put in work. Have to, and we have we have a song coming out. It's called "Freedom Ain't Free." If you're gonna give up any kind of convenience anywhere, you're gonna have to give more, and you have to work more. And so I know the pictures look all nice and glamorous and everything, but it's some serious work. It's a headache. It's dirty. It's nasty. But it's all goes back to what I said before. What do you want? And if you are in it for just the satisfaction of being able to create for yourself and just the satisfaction of being able to do for yourself and not to rely on anyone else. And that's something that I think that you should look into. When you're looking to do, have some kind of reality show and be, some kind of Instagram celebrity or whatever, I hope you have the pocketbook to to fund that, because it's not glamorous. Even at home in Chicago on my little plot, it's still hard work with the chickens and the dogs and the kids and whatever else, the bugs messing with my I don't even know what I didn't even know what potato bugs are, right? Where did those things come from?
They're gross.
Yeah, so
they're really gross. They're so smushy.
I didn't even know I'm like, where did those things come from? but even with this little plot that I have here, it's still a lot of hard work, but I find joy in knowing that we're working towards something that it's not just for me, it's not just for my wife and to feed my kids, but it's about legacy. It's about I like Justin Rose where he talks about I have the same feeling, the same sentiments about, I'm building soil for my great grandchildren, right? My he just made some pole barn or something. He's like, my great grandchildren are going to be able to come out here and say, hey, Justin, he built this for us or whatever. And I want my family to, know the same thing. Know what you want.
Are your parents still around? How have they reacted to this plan about leaving Chicago and building Blackhaven Ranch?
I don't think they believe me. Every time I mention, I've been talking about it for years, and then like recently, I'm like, hey, yeah, I think today is like 47 days. We have 47 days until we get out there. And my mom was like, where? It's like, I'm like, to the farm. What are you going to be doing? When are you leaving? What are you going to do? Where are you going to stay? And all of this stuff. And I don't think they believe me, but they have been supportive. I just think it's so far from how we were raised that it's almost unbelievable. And I like it like that. A lot of people don't believe, what we're going to do. And I like it like that. I think they find satisfaction in going back to those days. My mother's family had a big farm for over 100 years. It wasn't a functional farm for some time, but in Huntsville, Alabama, they had like 174 acres that they bought from their masters. And recently it was sold. My grandmother sold it, I think 2016, which ultimately was one of my motivations for buying some land, because you just don't get that. Alabama A&M had one of their first agriculture programs on that land. And it's just a lot of history in it. I think my mother, even though she does, it seems like she doesn't believe. I think she knows it's something I'm going to do. She just knows I'm crazy. I think they look forward to one day being able to go out there and sit on the porch like we used to do at Maddie's farm.
Can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with your wife and how your partnership has helped make this dream of Blackhaven Ranch a reality?
My wife is my best friend. We've been together since sophomore year of high school. And, you know, relationships, long distance. I was in South Carolina for college. She was still here in Chicago for college. Right out of college, we had our first child. I think I graduated May of '09. We had our daughter, oldest daughter, in September. If we didn't have that friendship, a couple things wouldn't be so. We wouldn't be together. We wouldn't be together if we didn't have our friendship. And then also, most of the things that I've put in place would still be a thought, because I'm a visionary, but I won't pull the trigger on a lot of stuff because it has to be perfect before I go out and do it. My wife, she's like, "Oh, you're crazy, but okay, okay, let's go ahead. What we're gonna do?" And a lot of the business side of stuff, a lot of the well, I'm not gonna say a lot. All of the paperwork stuff that goes into running a business and whatever, all the legal stuff that I just get overwhelmed from because, men can't multitask. She just finds a way. She doesn't know. She knows just as much as I know, which is nothing. And she finds a way. She looks it up. She hates that. She hates that I call her. She asks, "What do I love about her?" And I say that she's resourceful. She hates that because it doesn't seem romantic or intimate. But, biblically, that's what that story of Adam and Eve is, that, I've made her to be your helpmate. And the places where you lack, she picks up, and vice versa. And so we complement each other that way. I'm just grateful to have her in my corner because I believe that the world needs to see a lot of the stuff manifested that's in my head. I'm also blessed to reproduce healthy, strong, independent children. And I believe if you have the means and you're able to, that you should have as many as you can, because that's your gift to the world. And she gave me that as well. And I guess by the time this airs, you guys will all know that number 5 is on the way.
Oh my goodness. When is she due?
I think she's like 14 weeks now, so it should be somewhere in August. I don't know why we have all those kids around that time, but hopefully it's another boy. I have 3 girls and 1 boy.
I'm one of 6 myself, so it's amazing to grow up with a big family. And honestly, if you're going to be on land and you're going to be out, my parents always used to say that it was a good thing that we lived in the country because our neighbors were like a quarter of a mile away, but they would still call sometimes and be like, "I could hear your kids screaming." You just can go wild and run around.
Yeah. My whole ideology about children has changed since delving into this. We had our first one, then we had our boy, and we were like, okay, we're good. You have a boy and a girl, 2 dogs, we're good. And then I started thinking, and okay, we're going to get into business, and we're going to get into owning land, and I need help. I'm going to need help, and I want my legacy to be carried on as many avenues as it can be. Also, I have the space. I picked up some habits from my father, as far as being strict. I don't like noise. And it's not that I don't like it. I just don't like it in small spaces because I don't want to bother anyone else. And so, but when we go out to the land, it's like, have a ball. Have a ball. Be as loud as you want, and you should be able to do that. I was loud. I was a loud kid. I was all over the place. I was an outdoors kid, a real kid, like a 90s kid. And I want the same thing for my children, even if that's in a different setting.
It's interesting that you say a 90s kid because I'm also a millennial, and I just feel like even if you lived in a city, you lived in the country, it was still like after school you would go off on your bike and be gone all day and then come home for dinner. But that's really shifted a lot in cities and even in some small towns, but less so in rural areas. It's much more, you're able to keep that kind of almost like innocence or less fear.
We live in the same exact neighborhood that I grew up in. I grew up in a police neighborhood, actually. There's white Irish policemen everywhere. We were the only black family here for a couple years. And it was safe. The only thing we had to worry about were the police. As the neighborhood began to change, had more black middle class professionals, principals, and mostly teachers and firemen and police officers. But we had a really, really, we can go wherever we want to in the 90s. We ride our bikes all day, play whatever kind of ball there was available. We played kickball, whatever it was, and we stayed out. And now, in the same neighborhood, less than a mile away from my parents' house, I have to be with my kids at all times. I have to always be watching, even when we're on the mini farm in the front. They can't go past the tree in one direction or the other, and I think that's sad because it's just so. Our childhood was really. If you grew up in the 90s and barring growing up in super bad poverty, even though those guys had a lot of fun too. I mean, we just had a good time just being with anything outside. Is just, as long as I wasn't inside, I was great. And so I want the same thing for those guys, and I want them to be able to bring their friends and cousins and stuff down and experience that, and come year after year if they need to. We have the infrastructure to provide that. There's no need for you to be, hemmed up in some corner in the city when you could come out to your friend's farm or your cousin's farm and enjoy yourself.
So let's talk about the future of Blackhaven Ranch. How do you see it manifesting, building out, and how can people help support that mission and push it forward?
I said earlier that, obviously we're farming and everything. We want to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining on the family side. I want to provide a significant amount of our own food as well as for my extended family. But on the other side, away from farming, we want to create a haven for not just for Black people, but for city dwellers to be able to come where they feel comfortable and safe and experience the great outdoors, whether that be getting on the river, just coming to camp for the first time, shooting at the range, whatever it is, whatever you do outdoors, we want that on that side. So we're creating Camp Blackhaven for that purpose. And I want eventually busloads of people to be able to come for a week or two to send their children in the summertime, even organizations, nonprofit organizations, retreats for businesses, and all of that stuff, be able to come and have those things there so they can just get away from the monotony of, every day in the office or every day at the school, every day at the gym, field house at the park district or whatever. Those are the farming, and I guess it would be called agro-tourism maybe. And then as far as helping out, we always have our I created a way for myself to keep working from home wherever I am, whether I'm in Chicago or down in the Ozarks. We have apparel that I make by myself. Also, we have a GoFundMe that's up that's for the infrastructure of the land. We going to build a a bunkhouse or two. We want to get just some infrastructure up for that. The biggest thing I feel is just to share the story. I love you so much, and your content is top tier content that you create. I study and I watch everyone, and I'm going to be doing that as well, trying my hand at it, but really want to get my kids into it. So once we get probably in a week or two, we'll be doing documenting everything. So YouTube, Blackhaven Ranch, come check us out. Hit the subscribe button on that, and give us feedback. Give us critique and everything. And always, advice is always welcome, because this is all trial. Everything is trial and error. So I really appreciate the support from everyone.
This season of the Urban Exodus podcast is brought to you by Jake.art. Bring the beauty of the outdoors in. A new online art shop brought to you by Urban Exodus. Search our collection of affordable, high-quality fine art prints and illustrations by color or theme to find just the right work for your home or office. Or commission us to do a custom illustration or photograph of a loved one. Visit Jake.art, that's JAKE.ART, or click the shop button on urbanexodus.com. I really think that your mission is so important, like just providing access, safe access to the outdoors. It's something that after doing this project for 6 years, it's impossible to ignore how some rural areas can feel really closed off and not safe to people of color. And I wondered if you wanted to speak to that or speak to any experiences that you've had in that capacity and why it's important.
I actually think this is might be the one of the most important conversations that's not being had. As far as people ask, one of the first things when I say, "Oh, I bought some land and it's in the Ozarks," everyone cringes and they jump, and they automatically think banjo, Confederate flags, and everything else. And I grew up, around a mixture of people, but I traveled all around the world. I spent my summers away from home until I was 18. And what I have is an understanding of what's going on, or I try to empathize with my neighbor or my counterparts. And the best example I can give you is I took a camping trip. I took some people with me the first year we bought the property. And once we got down there, and it was 2 cars. One car, it was me and a buddy, and then another car came up the next day. The conversation that me and the passenger that was with me, we were having was, man, this is really nice. I didn't know this was here. These people are out here living their best life. And the next morning, when the next car came, what they said when they got out the car was, man, these people out here living their best life, word for word, same exact thing. But they were apprehensive about doing certain things. And I told them, you can't look at people how you think they're looking at you, because that's not the story. That is a narrative that's given to drive poor people away from each other. A lot of times we have an ideology because of the way or where we're from and our special interests. But my special interest doesn't override anyone else's special interest. And I think once we start understanding that and stop all this, canceling people and listen, we'll understand that we have the same story. The back roads of America has taken a tremendous hit over the last 60 years, the same way that the urban dwellers have. It's divested, right? There's no business coming in, there's no jobs coming in. It's the same thing you see in Inglewood is the same thing you see in Eminence, Missouri. People don't understand that because they're always shouting at each other. And so while I do realize that there are some evil people out there and we should be aware of that, my weapon against that is conversation. You have to be discerning about what conversation you entertain. Some stuff I'm just not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about the president and all of this stuff because I'm not trying to beat anything into you. And I don't want to lose my relationship or my friendship that I have with you because of a difference in ideology because of where you're from and where I'm from. All I know is I need that you live close to me and I'm going to need you one day and you live close to me and you're going to need me one day and my bank account is closer to your bank account than it is to anybody that's in the Senate, House of Representatives, or in the White House. So that's where we can agree on that we're both in respect, we're both poor compared to the people at the top.
In our initial interview, you shared a story of a neighbor driving his tractor 9 miles to help you put up a fence. Can you talk a little bit about the community that you found in Missouri since buying your property? Has it surprised you, or do you feel like you have found a good community there?
I believe so. My good friend Paul, my good friend Paul. So when we first went out there and we stayed at a campground that's about 6 miles straight down the road from us, called Twin Bridges. That's where everyone goes to do their kayaking and stuff. We stayed there, and I think one day after we finished kayaking, I told my wife I'm gonna go over to the bar because I need to find out what's what around here, and I know that you can find out at the bar. And so it's 2 p.m. and no one was there but the bartender. And within 10 minutes, he told me everything that I needed to know. And going forward, me and the bartender have had a really great relationship, just staying in touch, letting me know what's going on down there and all that good stuff. So I was looking for someone to clear some brush for me later on, maybe the next summer. And the bartender recommended this guy named Paul. I don't know who Paul is, but Paul gave me a call. And he went out there and told me, let me know when you're coming out. I'll make sure it's all cut down for you when you get there. He made sure it's all done. He didn't make me send him any money or anything. He said, give it to me when you get here. He didn't want me to send anything. He trusted me. He took my word for it. He came and met me and some of my friends there. And he was giving some suggestions. He's like, man, you need to at least let's put this fence up here. Or at least people will know that it's owned and that not to enter. And, I'll help you out when you come back. So sure enough, I came back a month later. He cleared the brush again for me. He came back with the tractor and the auger. He lives about 9 miles away. He stayed out there with me from Friday to Sunday, and it was 100. It was almost 100 degrees out there. It's mid-July for 8 hours every day. And when it was over with, I tried to give him some money, and he's almost about to fight me, trying not to take it. He didn't even charge me the second time to cut the grass the second time, and met his family and everything. And you would think, just by looking at him and his car, his license plates, and his different symbols and stuff, you would think one way. He's not. We can't prejudge people. He's the nicest person, one of the nicest people I ever met, and he lives 9 miles away from me out there. I probably couldn't get my neighbor 9 houses away from me to come do anything for me here. And so that's what I mean when we have to be careful about, how we look at people and what they, what they wear and, what they tote and everything. He's been a great help. My neighbors that live down the road from me, they're interesting. They used to live on a boat in Florida, but everyone has been really, really nice. I mean, like overly nice. Like I would rather spend time with them in the middle of nowhere than spend time with a lot of people that I've known for years here, because I know that there's a mutual respect, and I can trust them. They can trust me, and there's a give and take that I know that I'm going to get just as much as I give, if not more.
So you're headed back up to the Ozarks really soon. What is your plan when you get there? Are you going to stay for a longer stretch this time? And when do you think that you're going to move up there permanently? Do you have any kind of goals set?
We're leaving. It's 47. Actually, this day is over, so 46 more days until the meat birds come. So the plan is, I kind of finagled this, but the plan is to raise 100 meat birds, 50 at a time. While I'm out there raising them, I'll be able to work on some infrastructure and take care of some business, like address and electric and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll be there, and the baby will be here in August probably, so we'll be there till July. And the plan is to make a micro homestead, right? So pretty much everything. We're not going to focus on all the acreage. We're going to focus on pretty much having what we have here. We need a dwelling, and then we need a place to grow, a greenhouse, a garden, and infrastructure for animals that we have and animals that we're going to be getting. If we can eat the elephant one bite at a time, then we won't be so overwhelmed about everything that we want to do. So we're going to focus on I think it's about four acres this summer, trying to figure out if the price of wood goes down. I'm going to build something myself this summer. If not, we'll wait and probably convert some kind of share home or RV or something. I'm even thinking about these military tent things. I saw some cool stuff with that. But the overall goal is to make some progress, feed actually make soil, because it's nothing but rock in the Ozarks. Do some permaculture stuff and be able to leave. If we can leave on any day, have our bags packed in Chicago, and then just up and leave and know that we have somewhere to go with the kids. It's going to be heated or cooled, and that we can just up and leave. So long term, I actually want to be out of here by next year, next spring. So I have a lot of work to do, but I want to be. I know we have the new baby, so we might have some stuff to talk about with that. But I want to be out of here for good by next spring.
Let's talk about the things that have been holding you back too, because I know that you have been an activist in your community for a very long time, and you've been trying to fight this from where you are. And now it's this idea of breaking free of that and showing a different way, right? What happened that has been holding you back, and these kind of double standards that we have in our society that are continually holding people back from pursuing their dreams?
In 2018, October 2018, a couple months after we purchased our land, the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police in Chicago, they alleged that I made threats to an officer. They shot a 15-year-old kid 16 times. And they allege that I said this on social media and all of this stuff. And it kind of connects to this whole land thing, because one of the things that they had been after me for some time because of what we do. They don't like that pressure. But what happened when I bought the land, I bought a rifle. For the first time I went out there, I saw some animals that I didn't like, and I was like, okay, I'll go buy my first firearm, right? I never owned a firearm, so I went, bought it legally, everything. And right after they saw that, they started putting bulletins out about me and all kinds of stuff. And even, I think in my indictment, they were trying to say that I was like raising a militia. I bought land to raise a militia. And so they finally twist my words around where they thought that they could get some kind of charge against me. I was in the courthouse. I had been in the courthouse for the trial of the officer for the whole week. They came and got me out of line, and they tried to charge me with like 12 felonies. And the state's attorney rejected all of them and gave me like a disorderly conduct just for some really hyperbole. It's hyperbole online. And so I beat that. And then 3 months later in January, a couple months later in January, the federal government came because the Fraternal Order of Police wrote the federal government asking them to do an independent investigation. So they came, they closed my whole block down, and like 40 marshals came to my house and, took me away. And, it's actually a law that hasn't been explored yet, really haven't been explored. I guess more now, but the Chief Justice of Illinois doesn't even know what to make of it. I don't have any record. I've never been to jail. I don't have anything on anything. And they won't let it go. They purposely gave me charges that aren't able to be dropped to a misdemeanor. So I don't even get a plea. I can plead to a felony, but that's not going to happen. So seeing a lot of stuff on the other side of things now. So what I was saying initially when the young man got killed and they interviewed me one of the first times, I told them it doesn't matter if I have this collar on, my preacher's collar on or anything, I'm still seen the same way as him. And so that's why, I'm out here. That's why I'm doing this, because it doesn't matter. I can do everything that I'm supposed to do. I can go to high school, get good grades, go to college, be involved in my community. I wrestle with all of those people's kids, all the first responders' kids. They love me. They love me until I said something, and then all of a sudden they hated me. So I've been on this like supervision until trial happens, and COVID kind of slowed that down. So I wasn't able to go to the land my first year, that first summer. I wasn't able to go. It really hindered me. Like I feel like I would be there by now. I would be on the land living there by now if it wasn't for this. But we'll prevail.
What does freedom mean to you now that you've made this kind of major life shift?
Freedom is not conforming, having the ability to not conform. It's having the ability to not let anyone leverage anything against you, and being fine with turning your back on whatever it is that's trying to hold you down, and not feeling like you have to run back to that. So in a nutshell, that would be freedom to me, is having the goal to turn away from anything and not having to go back.
So imagine yourself in the future. You're in your 80s, you're sitting on your front porch What do you see, and what is this legacy that you want to leave behind for your children and for future generations?
I would have just finished my chores, my farm chores. I don't believe in retirement. I believe in mentoring and teaching. So my grandchildren will probably be out there, and I'll be helping them learn how to do their farm chores, or mentoring them on a better way, or having that time with them as we do our chores. And then I would come back to the porch with my wife, have coffee, because that's my ultimate goal, is to be back on the porch, whatever age. Right now, by like 9 o'clock, have coffee with my wife, and then get back to doing whatever projects are lined up for the day. If I'm on the porch at nighttime, I have a beer in my hand, and and I'm just looking over the land, and appreciating and looking at the stars. As far as legacy, I want all my children to have a substantial amount of acreage. I also want them to look at me and my grandchildren and those people after me to look back, and the same way that I look back at my ancestors that purchased land from their masters, from their slave masters, and respect all the hard work that went into that. Because essentially that's what I'm doing. We talk about reparations all day, and I'll probably be dead before that happens. So I bought my own freedom, pretty much. In the 21st century, I bought my own freedom, and it's a lot of work that goes into that. I want my great grandchildren to look at a man that lived in the city of Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, for 30 some odd years, and then there was a paradigm shift. It was a crux. There was some kind of crisis, and he made the decision to turn his back on everything that he knew.
I have one last question for you, and it goes back to this idea of nature and the healing quality of nature. You were a Baptist minister. How is your faith and your connection to the natural world interrelated?
I really didn't understand this until recently, until the last couple of years. So many parts of life and dealing with people is triggering, because you met with scrutiny. You have to please. You have to love people, and everything else except for kindness is hard about love. If you listen to the biblical description, love is patient and long suffering, and and all that stuff. So there's nothing easy about loving people, but nature is the healing property behind it. I didn't realize it's a sanctuary, right? It's a place where you can go to relax. You can go to recharge. It's a place that you can look at the animals, and you can look at whatever's out there, and everything is doing what it's supposed to be doing. You don't have to tell the sun to get up every morning, or the moon to come up every night. You don't have to tell the trees to bend when the wind blows. You don't have to tell the wind to blow. Right? You don't have to tell the tigers to go drink or whatever. You don't have to tell the turtle to hide in the shell when danger is coming. Everything does what it's supposed to do, and it doesn't take advantage mechanically over any other species. It just gets up, it eats, it wastes, and it goes on to the next thing. And I think that if we looked at nature that way, we can learn a lot from it, because we complicate so much of our lives trying to manipulate and trying to get ahead. Human reasoning is a wonderful thing, but it might be the most detrimental thing to our mental health. All that analysis And it just does so much. And so the Bible talks about dropping everything, all your riches, to follow me and whatever. I've never seen, the closest thing that I've seen to God on earth is nature. And I didn't realize that until a couple years ago. And so that's where I spend, because even the church, you'll be criticized for points that you make, you're preaching or whatever. People don't agree with you and all that stuff. And, I don't have that's triggering. So when you go to the sanctuary and you're triggered, that can't be the sanctuary. I go to nature and nothing ever bothers me. It's just everything is what it is. It's what it's supposed to be.
And I think it's really beautiful that you're building that for your family and that you're building that so that other people can have that connection. I just really think what you're building is amazing, and I really support your endeavors. I'm just really looking forward to seeing it come into vision.
I appreciate you, and I really admire you and everything that you, all the many things that you do them, and you do them well. Like, it exceeds well. And so I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Matthew Ross. I really appreciate Matthew's perspective when it comes to building relationships outside of the city by not prejudging people based on appearances and finding common ground through conversation. We are at such a divisive and polarized time in our society, and only through meaningful conversation will minds open and perspectives shift. I am so inspired by Matthew's vision for Blackhaven Ranch and the tireless work he has put into making this dream a reality. After working on this project for nearly 8 years, I can say with conviction that there needs to be more alternatives to urban oppression. Please consider contributing to Matthew's capital campaign to build the infrastructure for Blackhaven Ranch. You can also buy a t-shirt from his online store and follow his journey on YouTube and Instagram. You can find a link to Blackhaven's website, GoFundMe, additional interview responses, and pictures on our blog by visiting urbanexodus.com. Hi, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Urban Exodus podcast. Urban Exodus is a labor of love, and it's only made possible by your generous support. Maybe you just discovered Urban Exodus, or maybe you followed the project for a long time. Either way, please consider supporting my efforts so I can keep this going. The first and easiest way is to click the support button at the top of urbanexodus.com and pledge any amount you like. Second, sponsor an episode of the podcast as a business or individual and get a 20-second ad spot in an upcoming episode. Just click the podcast link on urbanexodus.com to learn more. Third, you can sign up for an in-person or online workshop with me or one of the incredible creative professionals through our workshops at How Hill Farm. Click the workshops page on urbanexodus.com to learn more. Fourth, you can buy something from Jake.art, our new Urban Exodus online shop. A fine art print or wall art for your home or office. A custom illustration or portrait of your family or loved one. There are so many cool things. Just click the shop page to peruse what's available. Lastly, you can hire me to photograph your business or family, or take one of my online or destination workshops. Click the collaborations page on urbanexodus.com to learn more. Another really excellent way to support is to recommend Urban Exodus to your friends and relations. Also by giving a 5-star ratings on iTunes to beat the algorithm and so that we can be more easily searchable. Your continued support will keep this passion project running. I want anyone who feels unfulfilled by career or circumstance to know that they have options and alternatives. All of the work that I do through this project is to encourage people to believe in themselves and to work towards a better future for their community and the planet. Thank you for helping me continue to do this work. You can find Urban Exodus on Instagram and Facebook at The Urban Exodus. To read more in-depth features on folks who ditched the city and went country, visit urbanexodus.com. Until next time, I'm Alyssa Hessler, and this is The Urban Exodus.